What is up, everybody? Welcome to halftime here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. We have a blowout here at Arrowhead Stadium. Break it all down for you. We're here in the Wild Rose Casino Studios. Halftime is always presented by our friends at the Iowa Pork Producers, Central States Roofing, and always our friends at Carl Auto Group. Well, this one, it starts off where Iowa State defers, stops Kansas. So it's the first time in 4 games the Iowa State defense has gotten a stop on the first possession. The Iowa State offense goes 99 yards down the field and scores a touchdown effortlessly. And you're feeling really good. And then the thing it is completely cratered in every sense of the word since then. Let's go through these drive charts for Kansas. Again, the first one you get the stop. The rest of them look like this: 74 yards touchdown, 90 yards touchdown, 73 yards touchdown, 76 yards touchdown, 32 yards, and a field goal. For Iowa State, a couple 3 punts in there and then a couple of field goals after that 99-yard drive. We'll start things off with the defense, and then I'll get into a little bit of offensive analysis here as well. The Iowa State defense appears to be broken at this point in the year. There's a lot of there's a lot of stuff you can say, but you just look at it, and at least in that first half, so many guys just completely out of position, just look confused. I do think there's an element of it where the injuries have piled up. Dominic Orange is not out there today. I don't think Verdon's playing much now. He did start the game. But the just mass confusion is what it looked like in the secondary, which is just weird with all the experienced guys, right? Like Miles Purchase wasn't even within like 7-8 yards of his guy. They called a cornerback blitz on one of the Kansas touchdowns where the safety, it's almost like he didn't know the play. James didn't shift over to cover. I mean, one of the most wide open touchdown passes you'll ever see at this level of football. Little to no pressure on Jalen Daniels, which is giving him, just an opportunity to have a field day. He's still only 7 of 14. So you've held him to 50%, but man, what a disappointing half of football for that Iowa State defense. Just really, I said this, I said this on, I think with Bloom on Sunday, that I felt like I had more confidence in the offense going forward, even though they had just struggled. It just, this is the 3rd game in a row now where the defense, I don't know, they were pretty good in the middle of that Tech game last week, and then, couldn't come through on that final possession, but just the inability to stop the run, and this again, like some of that stuff is you expect it, especially when you're playing all these backups. But the problem is the out of position stuff and just the utter confusion. The other thing I would like to point out here before we get into the offense is just the penalties in general. That was why this team, turnovers and penalties, led to its 7-0 start. 5 penalties for 32 yards really stalled out the offense on its second drive today. And super disappointed to see that, especially after last week. The it's a situation where all the false starts. You had a delay a game today after a dead ball. Just really, 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 really bad stuff that you wouldn't expect from a veteran group. And like, what is it? I don't know. Did they hit a wall? Did they overachieve early? I don't know. I don't know, but the defensive thing, because you look at this and you're like, well, you get the ball at the half, well, let's say the offense has an explosion. I mean, is there really much faith that the defense can stop this team, right? Like, it's just really, the other thing too, when you come into this, we talked about it all week on all my shows, 7-1, going against a 2-6 team, and you're only a 3-point favorite. That's just Vegas baiting you. And, that's why I usually go with the odds makers, because they are right more often than they are wrong. Let's talk about the offense, where the the massive amount of attention going on all the sacks, rightfully so, and the offensive line definitely deserves its fair share of criticism. But I think that the reality of it is that Rocco Becht is not playing as well as he has been. I really, and you say, well, why is that? Is it because he's constantly under pressure? Yeah, I mean, all that stuff is true. There's no doubt about that. But there's Mauser had some really good play calls in that half that were there. Specifically the one where 70 goes in motion. Klotz is wide open in the end zone. Rocco, I don't know what was it, one of those deals where you have a wide open layup and you just think about it too much. The guy was so wide open, I don't know how he missed him. But he just hasn't been sharp for a while, really, since that West Virginia game. He had the great, running game and come back against which game was that? Central Florida. But I'd say he hasn't been sharp since that West Virginia game, and he certainly hasn't been today. He was awesome on that first possession, but since then, 12 of 20, it's okay. But he's got to be better, right? He's got to be better. I really wish it's too late to do this now. Being down, sorry, I didn't even give you guys a score, 31-13. You're all watching the game. It's probably too late to do this now, but I wish that they would have really stuck with the power running game a little bit after that first drive, right? They were going downhill, and Iowa State's offensive line really had a ton of push in that first possession, and it's just been non-existent since, because now you're backpedaling. You have to put the ball in the air. You're three possessions behind. There's nothing else to do at this point. So now you're predictable, and it's going to be a really tough task to come back. And again, like, let's just say in a best case scenario, Iowa State can turn this around and score some points. You go out and get 6 here, make it a game. What are the chances they're going to get stops? And that's, to me, like, I just don't have a ton of faith that you're going to be able to get enough stops. It would have to be a turnover-based thing on behalf of Kansas, which is certainly possible. It's a team that's done it before. But, Kansas coming off a bye looks like the better team today. There's no doubt. They look more prepared. They look more athletic. And the Iowa State defense thing is very perplexing. It's very perplexing to me. I don't understand it. And again, it's not, when I watch a backup, or in many cases third string, you understand, like, oh, didn't make the tackle, not athletic enough, all that stuff. These guys, in a lot of them, it's guys who play are so out of position right now. I don't understand it, because it's not like, oh, all of a sudden John Haycock is a bad coach. Like, we all know that's not true. But Kansas has them on skates, and props to Lance Leipold and this Kansas team. They have been in all these one possession games. Again, it reminded me a little bit of Iowa State 2 years ago, but they're coming off a bye and they haven't quit. They're still playing really hard for their coach, and you could tell that this is a game that they put a lot of emphasis on. You got a top 20 team coming in here, and you can kind of turn your season around and build the next year. And that's what Kansas is doing. Unfortunately, really looks like Iowa State's season going in the opposite direction after a 7-0 start. There's still 30 minutes to play. We'll see how this thing finishes up, but I don't have a lot to be positive about here with you guys right now. Again, I look at this, and it's just now the injuries are starting to pile up a little bit on offense. I saw Tyler Moore is in a boot down there, so you're down to, you're really limited at the tight end position. No Ben Bramer today. Again, Iowa State has great weapons on offense, but if you're completely one-dimensional and there's no threat of the run, and these teams just blitz Iowa State, and it's like Iowa State just has no answer to the blitz. Is that, of course, the offensive line needs to pick things up, and I acknowledge that. I'm not going to bat for these guys because I don't know enough, but the problem is, like, there's got to be ways to scheme around it as well. And is Iowa State doing enough of that from a scheme standpoint? is Rocco getting rid of the football in proper time? These are questions that I don't have one. I don't just know, but it certainly seems like it's more than just, oh, the line sucks, in my opinion. Is it, is there something Iowa State was doing early in the year that these opposing coordinators have caught on to? That to me seems like more of the answer, and Iowa State needs to adjust. That's where I would land on this. We'll see what Matt Campbell says after the game. But, if Iowa State can go out there and get a quick touchdown and get a stop, this could be, still a pretty decent ball game. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like Kansas is kind of on a different level than Iowa State is today. And it's unfortunate. I didn't have a great feeling about this because of the point spread and all that stuff and the massive amounts of line movement that we've seen. It's generally not a good sign, but it's not perfect either. We'll see where it happens. We'll see where we go. Be right after the game. Again, appreciate our halftime sponsor, as always, the pork producers, Iowa Pork Producers. You guys are the best. Thanks to my friends over at Carl Auto Group and Central States Roofing. I'll be here right after the game to break it all down with you guys here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network.